And that was just a little clip from Larry Young. That was Zoltan. And so, welcome to the Unconnoisseur channel. I'm your co host, Drew.
And I'm the other co-host, Matt.
And today we get the pleasure to talk about Larry Young and his album Unity. That was on Blue Note record, and that came out in 1966. There's so much to talk about this album, so much excitement that I had over listening to his organ playing. That was a crucial part of this. It was experimental music. But as we get started today, Matt, what's your week been like in music and in life in general?
Man, I had a great week. I think I texted you Wednesday night when I was listening to the Three Rivers Big Band. So I'm always in heaven when I get a chance to go to the club room and watch them play. It's always fun. Live music for me is always the best environment, I guess. It was when I always just get jacked and jazzed up really hard. And Three Rivers Big Band is just, you know, being local to my hometown and the quality of musicians that you got. The TikTok that I put out, it was my highest viewed TikTok of all time, and it was just a short 1 minute clip of the trumpet solo. And so yeah, thanks for that. If you follow me on TikTok, thank you for viewing that video. The current artist that you and I are working on this week filled my ears for the remainder of the week. And yeah, there was enough music there to buffet on for days and days. I also got the chance Saturday to go on another Jeanette studio history tour. So I had the Boselli Wallard Jeanette suite in my ears on the way down, on the way home. Not while we were there, because I just needed to pay attention and learn some stuff. But man, that was an exciting day for me and Delaney. Kendra even admitted that she had a good time, so I'm glad she
Good.
went with and yeah, she had
I
a good
I thought
time.
that was really cool that y'all took a family trip down there. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about Jeanette.
You and I both read the book. We kind of read it together on our time and discussed chapter by chapter. And what we didn't know, what I didn't know, was that Richmond, Indiana, was the birthplace for recording jazz. Now, it's not the birthplace of recording music in general. They were recording in New York City, but they were doing mostly symphonies and small chamber music recordings before they were doing jazz. But Henry Jeanette of the Star Piano Factory Company, he wanted a plethora of music recorded and not just symphony music. So in 1923, Jeanette opened up a recording studio in the Star Piano Factory kiln room, if you can believe that. It's
Wow.
where they would light the fires and dry out the wood to make the pianos. I actually last year got a chance to walk on that ground and see the Jeanette Walk of Fame. I took pictures of all those and put a little slideshow together. I'll put that up on the website this week just so you can have a quick view of the Jeanette Walk of Fame. But we're talking about artists like Hoagy Carmichael, Bix Beiderbecke, King Oliver and his band, Jelly Roll Morton. So
Yep.
we're talking about the founding fathers of jazz. Okay, and
New
man
Orleans,
himself.
baby.
Yeah, well, yeah, New Orleans is that's where it all stemmed. But those artists would come up and record at Jeanette. They would record their music. Louis Armstrong, recorded with King Oliver at Richmond, Indiana. So the history of Indiana is intriguing to me, anyways. The history of Indiana and jazz, and so being there on Saturday, man, just it was okay. It was a history making day as well, and I'll tell you why. I got to watch a professional piano player, a graduate of IU, The Jacob School of Music. I'm sorry. She was from Jacob School of Music. She had graduated with her master's degree in piano and music. She played a piece on a 1905 Star grand piano.
Wow.
The thing that made it historic was that this is the very first time that a Star piano had been recorded in Dolby Atmos. Now, I'm not going to get into all the technical details, but inside the church that we were in for the recording, there was about 25 microphones set up. And the Dolby Atmos is, of course, 9.6.2, 9 speakers, 6 surround, and 2 subwoofers. So the 6 surround speakers, the microphones were way up, like near the balcony or pointing at the balcony, getting all of the reverb stuff. So she played a piece on the Star piano, and that was the very first time that a Star piano has ever been recorded in Dolby Atmos. So history making, and the photographer was there taking pictures of everything, and it was just. Then we got to go to the man's home studio, $1 million studio. I mean, I'm talking equipment that even, I hate to say it, that even Delaney didn't know what some of it was. He was talking. The Casablanca this and the Do Re Mi this, and I'm going to run it through the post processor here, and it was just really cool to watch him. And he only spent just a few minutes tweaking his board. He played it for us flat, which was just the 6 speakers in front. Then he tweaked his board a little bit, and I happened to be standing in the studio near one of the rear, which would have been the high ceiling mics. And I was listening very carefully when he played it flat. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's pretty cool. But then he turned on everything, and it made me feel like I was standing in the balcony with the reverb, how it would have sounded up there. So it was just amazing tour. I, it was a history making day for sure. For sure. I got to meet some really interesting people. Bob Jacobson, who was the one of the presidents of the Jeanette Recording Studio Historical Society. I met him, and he is just a downright nice guy. He treated us very, very well all day. I, of course, bought some stuff from the gift shop, took a tour of the history of Jeanette in the museum there in the Richmond History Center. I got to, take some pictures with a Star piano, of course. I did not touch the Star grand piano. I didn't. I didn't. I think I probably would have drooled all over it if I'd have done that. So yeah, Friday night I got to see Lady D and her band VO play at a small venue here in town. So I had live music in my ears Friday night as well. And then, of course, last night, that was the Billy Joel concert on TV. I told you right before we started recording, I'm not a Billy Joel hater. I'm not like a Billy Joel super fan, but the concert was really, really, really good. The reason that it interests me is because in November we're going to go to Las Vegas and see Billy Joel and Sting perform together in Las Vegas. So I just kind of wanted to get a preview of what I was kind of in for. And man, he did not let me down last night. His band, whew, wow. His trumpet player came out and just was wailing on solos and stuff. And of course, his saxophone player, very intricate integral parts to his music anyways, the Billy Joel sax.
Oh, yeah.
And a piano sax accompaniment stuff that they do. So I was geeking out last night at the Billy Joel concert as well. The Masters tournament ran a little bit long, so the concert got started late. Piano Man was the last song that he was playing. We were upstairs. It was 11:29, and Piano Man came on, and they did not get to finish it. They cut in with the news before Piano Man finished, and so Kendra and I both threw bricks at the TV.
Oh my word! What kind of dookie is that?
Yeah. So
Dookie kick him in the head. And
so
the news was a repeat of the earlier news, so wasn't anything special.
I know. It's all right. We'll get to see it live in November, so I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Good.
So that was my week. It was a very long explanation. I'm sorry that I took so much time. What about you? How was your week in music?
It was great. It really was. I didn't have the excitement of going to Jeanette Records or checking out Star Piano, So my week was pretty chill. A lot of the album of the week for what we're talking about tomorrow. A lot of this album again, Larry Young, Unity. I did a lot of just miscellaneous bouncing from music. I think this week it was more like a fire hydrant, and by the end of the week, I was ready to turn off the music. But I got to tell you, man, I can't wait for the day when everybody has access to our channel because I just enjoy turning it on, and some of the most random stuff comes on, and it's just it's like a shuffle play that you're in control of. But no, this week was pretty chill around the house. We just picked up the Honda from getting a big service done on it, so that's about it. We've had a
Yeah.
pretty easygoing week. Sax lesson was pretty good. By now, you'll see that Lily and I had an opportunity to play My Funny Valentine together.
Mm.
And I posted that up on Facebook. It was pretty fun because her instructor just says, "Well, you've got your trumpet, right? Get it. You're going to play." We played this the week before, and it was really cool. But I really struggled with it. I'm sight reading that song for the first time, and I've got the professional musician and my daughter, the professional musician, sandwiching me, and I better hit the right notes. And this week, when we played, I got to record a different rendition of it. We hit the bridge, and Lily soloed, and then we went back and played it again. So check that out on my Facebook page at Drew Rice. I think it's the Drew Rice on Facebook, but it was pretty cool and fun. It's always challenging, but I appreciate playing music with Lily, and I appreciate the challenge because it's jazz. I'm learning something. Uh, but it's been a good week, so I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we get to talk about Larry Young. I'm also looking forward to next week's album. Uh, or the album we'll announce at the end here. We are talking about album number 87, and this is Larry Young. The Unity is the album name, and it was from 1966. Larry Young is an organ player. Jimmy Smith was his inspiration. And Larry Young took over for Jimmy Smith on Blue Note's label. And when Larry came in, he wanted to do something very unique and fun, and he did. On this album, it featured Woody Shaw on trumpet, Joe Henderson on tenor sax, and Mr. Elvin Jones on drums. And this album to me was just so stinking cool. I appreciated the organ. Last week I mentioned to you that the week we were doing this a year ago, I got to hear Red Young play his Hammond B3 organ on the stage at the Texas Jazz and Blues Camp. So for me, it became real life. Listening to somebody talking to him about how it's played and listening to the whole setup. It's not just you think an organ today and it might be an electric piano that you get to change. A B3 Hammond organ is a very unique instrument, and it is so cool. So I just wanted to start with that. That's the album that we're talking about this week.
So
Well,
it's funny because I was going to relate my experience as well because after she was done playing the star piano, we got to hear the symphonic pipe organ in the Reed Center, and um, uh, Linda was her name that played the pipe organ, and they recorded that in Dolby Atmos too. So I was really comparing, sitting in the church listening to that pipe organ and thinking, wow, this is pretty cool because I'm studying another organ player this week who just happens to play jazz on a different kind of organ. But I'll tell you what, the thing that really blew me away of watching her play, because they had cameras also set up and they were switching the view every once in a while.
mm,
And with the organ player, with the organ, of course, she's using her hands, but she's got more pedals and sliders and stuff for her feet. I wasn't sure how, like, the organ chair must be a real swivel kind of chair because you can't sit on a standard piano bench to play the organ. I mean, your feet are going, your hands are going. She's pressing buttons to get different sounds on the bells and the whistles, and so a symphonic, uh, yeah, organ is literally all of the bells and whistles. There's bells and ting 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 and whistles, that she's doing with the organ sounds.
Can you
But
do the
man,
woo 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 again?
you heard
Woo
me.
woo.
When they would switch to her feet view and show what her feet have to do, and playing the bass, boom, 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 and then her right foot is controlling the airflow for the organ, and I'm just thinking in my mind, she's got to concentrate on all that stuff at one time and concentrate on hitting the right notes up here, and Larry. I was thinking about Larry Young specifically because we're studying him this week, and I'm like, man, that's really you can't sit still and play the organ. You gotta be moving all the time.
It's full meal deal, isn't it? It's full body
Yeah,
contact.
yeah. So
Especially for the symphonic.
yeah, well, yes, the orchestral.
Orchestral, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, the orchestral organ. But yeah, it was just cool because I'm studying an organ player in jazz, and I'm watching this big pipe organ being played by this phenomenal player, and it just it just overwhelmed me. I was just overwhelmed. I didn't cry, but I was close.
But you almost did.
I almost did. So while he's taking a drink, let me just reiterate. We're Drew and I are on our journey together, covering the top 100 albums that shook the world from Jazzwise magazine. Uh, our opinions are our own. You're going to hear us rate the artists here in a little bit, and those are our own opinions. We are not here to criticize anyone's work. We're just giving our opinion of how we like it as unconnoisseurs of non-experts listening to jazz. So if we offend you with our score, please let us know. Make a comment. Tell us what you think. If we're way off base, if you think we're knuckleheads, comment that we're knuckleheads. But you're going to hear our score in a little bit, and it may not, it may not be a great score. It may be an awesome score, but it's just our opinion of a non-expert listener. So we're learning a lot about jazz. We're learning a lot about jazz history. We're still not experts in this field by any means. So we're also here to help you discover jazz. We talk a lot on the channel about if we could just bring one person to discover an artist or a song that they really can connect with jazz, and then start branching out from there. That's what we're here to do. We're just here to help you discover maybe a new artist, or maybe you've heard Larry Young. Maybe you saw Larry Young in concert. Man, please, if you saw Larry Young in concert, man, put a comment in the video. Let us know what you thought, because that would be amazing.
That would.
I'll shut up now. You talk.
Well, I know that we've made one jazz convert. That was who we interviewed last week. By now, everybody will have seen both part A and part B, which was super cool about listening to people, listening to jazz. So we've got one new jazz follower, and I think that's the exciting part. Each week we find somebody who is on that journey and starting to explore. Larry Young, tell me, what was your thoughts about this week's album?
Well, I remember the initial journey, and we would, Drew and I do not look ahead. And so when we turn the page in the magazine, we hide the bottom one and talk about the top one. Well, Larry happens to be on the bottom, and I think we just said, never heard of him. Let's give him a listen, see what we think. He blew me away. He really did. I made some notes of the initial listening. That what I tend to do is listen to it for fun the first time through. Just listen to it for pure enjoyment. I don't pick on anything, or I don't pick out anything. And then the second, third time through, fourth time through, is when I start to listen for different things and try and hear different things, or maybe the rhythms, hit me different or whatever. But I made some good notes of the first couple times, the first couple times through. Drew played the clip from Zoltan, which is song number 1 on the album. I just put, that's an awesome trumpet solo that is going on there by Woody Shaw. Me being an old ex trumpet player, those those trumpet solos, they hit me in a little different way than
Oh
maybe most.
yeah.
Man, I hear a good trumpet solo and my ears just perk right up. So, in song number 5, Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, I put more of that trumpet just hitting hard. So, you know, it's the fun part of this journey is experiencing this music anew for the first time. And again, we're ahead, Drew and I, on our personal journey, but then coming back and listening to it again from another, it seems like a fresh perspective. It's been a year since we've heard him, and coming back from a fresh perspective, it reinvigorates me all over again for Larry Young. It really
Oh yeah.
does. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's interesting the notes to the songs that you made along the way. My first take on it, why I probably rated him the way I did, but looking at who played with him, what hit me first was Joe Henderson. We've listened to a lot of Joe Henderson because of his tenor sax. Joe Henderson played and made popular a song that was written by a trumpet player called Blue Bossa. And we did our first duet ever together for a talent show. Kenny Durham. Sorry, it was
Okay.
Kenny Durham
Yep.
that wrote it. And so for me, I saw the saxophone. I'm like, this is going to be cool. I've heard about Elvin Jones, so I thought that would be really cool. But who is Woody Shaw? And so listening to this, I came out with it's not free jazz, but the album features some experimentation. And I think that was in the magazine. And I started to
Mhm.
understand that experimentation does not mean it's free jazz. They're starting to experiment with instruments and the ideas behind what could happen. And then the songs started to change. Uh, the 6 tracks that were on the album were all 3 of the 6 were composed by Woody Shaw.
Mhm.
Zoltan, Moon Train, and Beyond All Limits. That was stinking cool. So I started to dig into Woody Shaw. No offense to Larry Young, but I was curious. That album made me curious. So I ended up listening to Blackstone Legacy from 1970. That was Woody Shaw. Gary Bartz was on alto and soprano. A lot of names here. But what hit me was my man Ron Carter on bass. I knew it was going to be a good album. Uh, so I went back and took some notes about the songs themselves, the things that stuck out. Monk's Dream, come on, Thelonious Monk. I
Uh-huh.
was going to enjoy something that was done by Thelonious Monk. Zoltan, I listed, it's a space march, kind of Odyssey, off key and harmonizing in parts. Monk's Dream, I said, I love Monk. Like, I like Turtles.
I like
I love
those.
Monk. Church Lady Gone Crazy. That's kind of how I felt about that when we grew up listening to the organ in church. I mean, there's no doubt that Gospel Temple let that bad boy rip, and for us, it's kind of a home earth tone. It vibrates with us. But to hear a church lady go crazy on an organ, that's what it felt like in Monk's Dream. Big band type sound on If, the song If.
Mhm.
Swing Baby, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then I learned who Woody Shaw is when I listened to Softly. And that was a Hammerstein and Romberg
Oh,
song.
see,
So
I didn't even pick that up. I
I,
did not even.
I just went off the deep end with Woody Shaw from there on out.
Mhm.
And then I went back to other albums by our man Larry Young, Testifying, Young Blues, Groove Street. I'm sorry, I got about 20 of them I ended up listening to, so I don't want to read them all, but from 1960, 65, 67, Lawrence of Newark in 73, Fuel in 75, which is listed as a jazz fusion, and I put funk soul. The Fuel album, I got a 10 out of here, so I really would say check it out. But then what hit me was Mothership from 1969. Lee Morgan on trumpet,
Mm.
Herbert Morgan on tenor sax, and it also had Coltrane on Blue Train. the song that was on there, and Eddie Gladden on drums. So I put another 10 next to that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of fun music that I really got into because of Larry Young and this album. I would have never expected an organ for jazz. I've heard it with blues. I used to hear it a lot with Malford Mulligan in town,
Mm-hmm.
but I would have never thought to just let it rip and hammer an organ like it was a piano. And then watching Red Young play, and what he later said is, if I'm not careful, I put my drummer out of business because I can do the entire rhythm section with my feet
That's right.
and with the noises that I can create. So listening to him play, and I wish I could think about who the drummer was with Red that day, but I get where you're at watching that organist play because it is full body contact motion, and the sound that comes from that thing, it melts my heart. I just fall in love with the Hammond B3 organ.
Well, and for me, the main thing about the journey for us is the recognizability later. And for me, you're gonna know it's Larry Young when it comes on.
Yeah,
Trust me. He doesn't overpower and overtake the music by any means, but the sound is very distinct. His overall jazz sound is very, very
yeah,
distinct. It's heavy organ, heavy on the organ, but man, he lets the other instruments shine though too. But the sound is very unique, right?
it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I don't mean to correct you, but in the magazine it says that the album was released in 1965. You
Yep.
said 66,
I
and I've
think I
just
also said 1967 in another part in my rant there. So 1965's
65,
album on Blue
right?
Note.
On Blue Note. So it
I got
interested
that
me
right.
because yeah, you got. I don't mean to correct you. I just was making sure that I was right because I was doing a little bit of research about some stuff that was going on in '65. Anyways,
Mm.
Miles Davis records ESP with his new quintet. Uh, Unfortunately, Nat King Cole died that year of cancer. Herbie Hancock recorded Maiden Voyage that year in '65. Uh, let's see. The U.S. intensifies its involvement in Vietnam. Now, you got to consider, and you mentioned it. Free jazz doesn't necessarily mean off the wall,
Yeah.
but it's pushing the limits a little bit, right? He was pushing the limits a little bit with his jazz. So was Miles Davis. So was Herbie Hancock. Coltrane released his Ascension album that year, and we'll talk about Ascension coming up later, clapping the hands, wake up because this is important. And Ascension is a free jazz album experiment album for Coltrane, but it kind of, when I started doing the research on Larry, I was thinking, oh man, that whole time frame they were pushing the boundaries of jazz in the first place, and so Larry wasn't he it's not that he wasn't incredible, but he really wasn't doing anything different than what the other greats were doing, as far as pushing the boundaries go. It's just my thought. Got anything to say about that?
No, I think that felt like a mic drop. Bam! That that information on that was just spot on because it is experimental. I, I
Yeah.
kept thinking the experimental part of it was the organ. I've been reading a lot about Coleman Hawken, and I had a short to post. I just don't like the lighting on it, so I ex-nayed that. But the short that I'll release a little bit later, probably tonight or tomorrow, talked about he was not the one who invented the sax, but he was the one that made sure everyone knew that it could be used for jazz. And I think Larry Young did that with the organ and
Mm-hmm.
the sounds that he created with
Let
his
me start my slideshow. Let me start my
yeah, yeah,
slideshow while you're talking. Yeah.
yeah, the what he did with his instrument was experimental at the time, but I think then the music moved into that experimental phase. So I think that was a really cool album for us to be looking at this week.
All right. So this, when I was putting the slideshow together this week, this really kind of hit me. The Unity album cover, which was on the previous. Here, I'll go back to that's the album cover there, and that's the original album cover. from the Unity album in '65, and then man, people are they're just brilliant. I love the artwork, the liberty, the hope, and the equality, and they did it in the same style as Larry Young did his album cover. I talk a lot
Yeah.
about that, how I remember opening the CDs and getting the paper out and looking at the artwork, and the artwork is always interesting to me too. And so when you find other artwork in the similar style, it excites me. I was just excited by those. So yeah. Anyways, Larry was born in 1940 and unfortunately passed away in '78. That makes him 38 years old when he died. You already talked about Jimmy Smith as being one of his influences. Jimmy Smith was another organ player, if I'm not mistaken. Coltrane happened to be another influence of Larry. Him and Larry played together on a couple of occasions. So, John Coltrane being an influence for an organ player means that Coltrane's got influences that far reach just the saxophone world of jazz. First album was released in 1960, and that was called Testifying. I actually did not check the very first album out. I'll probably go back and listen to that one this week. Testifying from 1960. Yeah. The genre, he's got a lot of genres listed, and I just pulled these right off the wiki page. Jazz, soul jazz, jazz funk, modal jazz, and jazz fusion. Now, you listened to a couple more albums than I did. Did you hear a lot of fusion in the other albums?
I did.
Did you? Yeah.
It came down to his later years as fusion was starting to happen with Miles and so many other artists. It looks like I have that starting in like 73. Heaven and Earth was in 68 on Blue Note. 3 of those albums from 60 and 62, Groove Street, Young Blues, and Testifying, were all listed as soul jazz. And then he had his unique sound for Blue Note through 68. And then Lawrence of Newark, Fuel, and Spaceball, those were all a little more funk and soul. So jazz fusion fell into that.
Yeah, so they got the genres right.
He was all over the place.
He was all over the place. I just pulled up a quote. Tony Williams said that Larry Young reinvented the organ. It was a different instrument when he played it. Larry unfortunately did not have a website. I put the link for the Wikipedia page. We can put those in the show notes. Another interesting fact to me today in jazz history, it happens to be tax day, April 15th. And the next video that we do, I will pre-think of when the video will come out and do a today in jazz history for that day that it's coming out instead of the day that we're recording. I failed to think that hard today. But anyways, today, April 15th, Miles Davis's quintet records in person Saturday night at the Black Hawk in 1961. So back in 1961 on April 15th, Miles Davis Quintet.
Yeah.
One more shot of the album cover, and I will exit out of this slideshow. I did have the Penguin Guide to Jazz pulled up. So Tony Williams, the guy that did the quote in my slideshow, was a drummer. So Larry Young's influence on Tony being a drummer was far-reaching too. I mean, he reinvented the sound of the organ. It was a different instrument when he played it.
Yeah.
That's pretty rock solid quote coming from a drummer. I don't know. I don't know. Penguin Guide to Jazz says that Unity is a modern jazz masterpiece. Now, modern for this version of Penguin Guide to Jazz, maybe, but do you think it was a masterpiece? Okay, let me ask you. Did it shake your world?
Oh, it sure did. I was thinking about that in all of the different ways that it did. I think because of my love and affinity for some blues music, it comes through with the organ. Growing up church, thinking about the organ being played in the background, maybe the organ to me, yes. And the way in which he used it as his primary instrument, it sold me. It shook my world. It really did.
Yeah.
How about you?
Again, the recognizability factor, I have created a jazz playlist shuffle on my phone so that when I'm out and I can't think of something that I want to necessarily concentrate on, I put on my jazz shuffle playlist and I play a little game with myself where I'll turn my phone upside down and let that shuffle, and play a song and see if I can pick out the artist. Every time Larry Young comes on, I don't even have to think about it. You and I laugh
Yeah.
about that all the time. That I'll be listening to 3 minutes of a song, can't pick out the artist, and your quote to me was, "When in doubt, it's Herbie Hancock." Well, I am never in doubt when Larry Young comes on that shuffle playlist. I'm just like, oh, that's Larry Young,
Yep.
because it is recognizable. And we told you guys last week at the end of our episode to check him out. I hope that you had a chance to listen to him this week and find that recognizability in his sound, because that's
Well, and Matt, I think now's a good time. I'm going to drop in a couple of audio clips down below here. We started off the show with a little clip from Zoltan. Is there something that you wanted to hear? I want to
well,
drop in a little bit of Moon Train.
okay,
So Moon
yeah, let's do
Train,
that.
check this
Yeah,
out.
let's do that.
Yeah, I'm digging Moon Train. Is there one that you wanted to hear?
Yeah, play just a few minutes of the like a trumpet section in Softly as in the Morning Sunrise. Play, yeah, just pick a
Yeah,
section of
boy,
that.
here we
Yeah.
go. Yeah,
What'd you
boy.
think? Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the recognizability for me is there for sure. It's easy to recognize. And that, again, that's just the fun part of my listening in shuffle mode. You listen to music a little different because once your album is over, it just automatically goes into shuffle for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's part of the YouTube music is it just wants to keep going. As long as my ears are listening, it just keeps on playing. So
Yeah.
like this week's album, when I was finished, what was it, 3 hours and 10 minutes on the album that we're listening to? I don't know where I
On
go from. Yeah,
Yeah, on our
not
current week, not this
Larry,
week. Yeah.
not
Yeah,
Larry's,
not
but
Larry.
tomorrow's conversation. When it finished, it just kept rolling, and I just thought it was still part of the album because it was a 3 hour long compilation album.
Mhm.
But it just kept rolling, and then finally it runs out of that artist in my shuffle playlist, and it brings up something different. In this case, yesterday it was Maiden Voyage, and I'm like, well, that's Maiden Voyage by Herbie Hancock, so I know I'm not listening to that trumpet player anymore. So yeah, I listen a little bit differently, and the shuffle part to me is fun because I do have my own playlist set up. And once I'm done with that playlist of the top 100 jazz albums, then it starts to find something different. But I still struggle between some John Coltrane and this week's album that we need y'all to listen to. Uh,
Well, okay, hang yeah. Or
Before we go, no,
you
go
wanna talk
ahead.
about 86? Okay. S Let me ask you one quick question. Would you recommend Larry Young to a brand new jazz listener? If this was the first
Ooh, you had
listener,
to go
first
there.
uh, I'm just asking because we are unconnoisseurs. If somebody would have recommended this album for us to be the first jazz album to listen to,
You
you
know,
think you'd
Matt,
recommend it first?
I have to think about that.
Okay.
I'm stuck with this answer, and not because of the answer itself, but when I think about this album, I wouldn't have listened to it with the intensity that I did. I wouldn't have cared for it as much as I did. So I would say yes, I highly recommend somebody listen to it because this is the first time that you it's not the first time because we had Jazz Warriors last week and we've had a couple others that just shake your mind. What I noticed this week compared to last year, I would recommend the album. And I highly recommend the album because you start to see that jazz is more than what you've perceived jazz music to be. Whatever we thought about jazz music at the time, whether it was Kind of Blue by Miles Davis or Giant Steps by Coltrane or anything by Monk, anything by Gillespie, you start to hear that jazz is not the midnight smooth jazz with the glass of wine or the overplayed
Kenny
sax
G.
solos or the smooth Kenny G. So it starts to shake it up and says there's more to jazz music than what you perceive. If it's been New Orleans style or West Coast cool or the hard bop of East Coast, there's still more. So yes. What about
Yeah.
you? I mean, I
You
just
know,
went on a tangent about that and how
no,
important this
I
album was.
I think for those some of those very same reasons, I'm not sure that I would do like it. Hey, be this. Let this be your first jazz album that you ever listen to. I'm not sure I'd recommend it very first, but it would definitely be in my top 10. Definitely be
Okay.
in my top 10.
So
I,
talking
I'd want
about
them. I'd want them to experience a little more of the traditional first, and then venture out. I'm glad it's where it was in the magazine. You know, this is
yeah,
number 87, week number 87. So this is the 13th jazz album that we listened to on our list. If it would have been number 100 and would have been the first, I'm not sure I would have gotten it as much. But man, being 13th on the list, and then of course all of the other music that you listen to throughout the week and those 13 weeks,
yeah,
it did. I'm not sure I could do it like the first. Yeah, I'm first. Hey, let this be your first jazz album. I don't think so, but definitely in my top 10.
yep. Speaking about top 10, what'd you rate this album at, baby?
You know,
you
I, I gave Larry I gave Larry I gave Larry a good score. I really did. We had a great week listening to Larry. Um I gave Larry an 8.5. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The recognizability factor there, the craftsmanship, the intensity of the music for me, they were
the
all there.
spirit behind it
The,
too. Yep.
the spirit behind it, absolutely.
And you will recognize it. If it's on a playlist anywhere you go, you're going to hear that and it's like a call to the wild. You're going to hear that organ and go, "Oh, I know who that is." There's
Oh
no
yeah.
doubt. I did give it an 8.5 as well. So we were both on the same target that week.
Mhm.
It was a pretty cool album. It was a
Yeah,
pretty
let me
cool
drop
album.
this real quick, and then we'll talk about number 86. Larry Young made the 1999 list from Jazzwise magazine. They took him off in 2006. He did not make the 2006 list. So in 99, he was number 66. He was pretty high up on the
Hmm.
list. Dropped back down to 87 in 2022, but he didn't make the list at all in 2006. We don't need to discuss that. I just thought that was an interesting fact from Jazzwise. That's the magazine that we're using to do our journey with, and that's how we chose to do our journey. I just thought it was interesting that they left him off the list in 2006.
What's up, John? Why'd you do it?
Tell us,
I'm,
John, will
I,
you?
I gotta be honest. What would life have been like if we didn't have him on the list right now? We don't know what we don't know. Would you have been mad after 2 years to come across Larry Young and wonder why wasn't he there?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Again, you said it just now. What we don't know, we don't know. I'm sure that after we finish the top 100, I mean, there's going to be artists that we have never still heard of.
Yeah.
That we don't know. Not some of the greats, not the granddaddies and daddy rights, but um there's going to be artists that we don't know about, and that's the other
Yeah.
exciting part for me. This isn't a sprint. This is a marathon for us, for me. So i'm
And
i'm still
if
super.
there's anything I've learned, because I want to flip to number 86 here, if there's anything that I've learned, we're seeing the jazz greats through the generations. We've seen Cassandra.
Mm,
We've gone over uh, now jazz warriors in the 80s. So we've had a lot of different names come through. So this isn't just about the beginning of jazz. This wasn't the Louis Armstrong. I hope to hear him. This wasn't the Dizzy or the Miles only. This is taking us through generations of jazz greats.
Mhm.
Now, number 86. Matt, I know you've been waiting for this. So
This is such
I want to interrupt
an
before you do that. I thought we were going to go the entire hour conversation and not actually rate last week's album. We have done that before, so I'm glad we got the rating in.
yes.
Without
Yeah.
further ado,
Without further ado, number 86. Michael Brecker is the artist, and it is the self-titled album from Michael Brecker called Michael Brecker. It's on Impulse. The label is Impulse, and it was only released on CD. The album was released in 1987. For those of you that do not know, Michael Brecker is a saxophone player, so you're going to get some hardcore saxophone music in your ears next week. Again, this is number 86 in the Jazzwise magazine. Michael Brecker.
you had to take a deep breath.
I better. So yeah, Brecker plays tenor sax and the EWI. Kenny Kirkland plays the piano and keyboards. Pat Metheny on guitar. Charlie Hayden on bass, and Jack DeJohnette on drums. So a few names on that list that I recognize, of course. I remember specifically a year ago this week, we just went completely crazy.
Yes. Yes.
This is the one that we didn't make it through even a full Tuesday without starting to text.
Oh, yeah, it was like an hour after we started. So we have a conversation on Tuesday mornings, and usually we go about our work after that conversation. I walk into a meeting, I've got shop time, and I put my earbuds in. And Matt's got tickets to get to, and we finish that 9:30, 10:30 your time or something like that. And if in an hour we both have text, that means the album has gone through our ears and we're doing backflips wherever we are. So let the rabbit hole begin. And in the words of Wayne Shorter, there are two types of rabbit holes: one you run down and one you fall down. I think this one we ran down gladly, and I hope that y'all do too. Don't only check out this album, but check this album out primarily, and then find out what else is out there by Michael Brecker. And if you end up on Pat Metheny, nobody's gonna have a hard time with that.
Nope, not at all. All right. Well, hey, thanks for checking us out this week. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We hope we were informative for you about Larry Young. Again, put Michael Brecker in your ears. If you'd like to email us, our email address is theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. You can always check us out on the website, theunconnoisseur.com. I'm on TikTok at The Unconnoisseur. Drew's doing our shorts for us and just banging them out. You and I were on the same sheet of music this week. You put out a short and I put out the TikTok video on the same the same information, which was awesome, by the way. And I would just like to say thank you, Grace, for the icons and the artwork for our channel. We have neglected 13 episodes now to even say thank you. So dude, thank you so much.
I've had comments on those as well, and what we have really is phenomenal as far as these little logos as we go in and out. The sax, the trombone. Grace, if you listen, I need a piano. Pretty please,
okay,
with sugar on top.
I can make that happen. And Lady D, every time I bring up the intro and outro music, she gets blushy and thinks, yeah, I need to do that. I need to do that. So before we know it, we're probably going to have some decent intro and outro music for our videos, and I can't wait for that to happen. Yeah. So, yeah. But thanks, Grace, for the icons and the artwork. We really appreciate you letting us use.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Everybody, have a great. We'll see you, Matt. We'll talk to you in the morning.
Sounds good, brother. Love you.
Love you too.